3.5 centuries ago, a terrible disease struck Smarden, and the story resonates now for a number of reasons. First, we have a doctor's bravery in the face of an unseen killer. Second, you'll see that the question of who and how to isolate people was at the very centre of that good man's battle, much as it is for us now. And thirdly, we find that the people back then often did the right thing, despite having no medical science to guide them. They gave that dreadful time a name. They called it Smarden'S Deadly Year. But did our good village doctor, back in 1671, change the lockdown rules, and in so doing save many lives? Let's find out. A few years ago, we found this note in Latin in the margin of a 17th century Smarden church book. It was written by the rector, Jonathan Whiston, who addresses himself directly to the future reader, with whom he shares his anger at the people of Smarden. He accuses them of heresy and ungodliness, and says that few of their children were ever baptized, neither were the people married or buried in the manner prescribed by the church. He goes on to say that the year 1671 was extremely deadly for the village, when over 50 people had died and had then been buried in secret. He ordered the church wardens to prepare from memory a list of these unfortunates, which he then wrote down in the church book. Dr. Hartnett was the village doctor. He was a licensed physician, a surgeon, and a member of the Society of Apothecaries, and was a founding member of the Baptist movement in Smarden. We find mention of him in Smarden's record books, treating the poor who fell sick. Here are some of his patients, and we can see that he attended people as far away as on Romney Marsh. Hartnett was a cultured man, fond of music. He had 2 keyboard instruments in his house in Water Lane, and was immensely proud of his profession as an apothecary. So much so that he carved this on a beam, which can still be seen in the front of Hartnett House. One historian described it as a goat, but it is in fact a rhinoceros. The problem being that the man who carved it in 1671 had never seen one and had to use these illustrations as his guide. The reason Hartnett put it there is that the rhino surmounts the arms of the Society of Apothecaries. We also know that he had a shop at his house, which possibly sold his medicines and remedies, and that he kept a number of beehives, honey having been used in medicine for centuries. Hartnett was a great philanthropist who built the Doctor's Row of cottages in Water Lane for his sick patients. He would have had precious little to work with. Bloodletting was the main procedure, supposedly to restore the body's balance. As an apothecary, he would have had his own medicines, plus a wide range of herbal remedies. They did get a few things right. Here we see villagers burning clothes after an outbreak of plague. A policy known as shutting up of the house, whereby a sick person was locked down at home with his healthy family members, condemned many people to death. In some parts of the Mediterranean, a different approach was being taken, whereby the sick were isolated away from the healthy. These places were known as Lazarettos. Now compare this with this. The beak would have been full of mosses and herbs to protect the wearer. Some herbal treatments have since been shown to be highly effective for certain ailments. A few years ago, a melting glacier in the Alps revealed this 3,000-year-old body of a man. Subsequent analysis showed the man to have been suffering from a variety of stomach complaints. These pouches, strapped around his waist, contained herbs, which we now know would have been effective treatments. The plague we call the Black Death had been ravaging the world for several centuries, and in the mid-1660s took the lives of about 1/4 of the population of London. In this cartoon of the time, we see wealthy people, and indeed the king and his court, fleeing London. However, to their internal credit, the mayor and the aldermen of the city stayed throughout the outbreak, as indeed did the poor. Although ships were being quarantined, the plague spread from Kent's ports inland along the main roads. And in 1666, Smarden attempted to isolate itself by cancelling its annual fair. By 1667, the plague in England was considered to be over. But in 1671, something very bad happened in Smarden, resulting in over 50 sudden deaths. The dead were then hurriedly buried in secret and in unmarked graves. Jonathan Whiston, who lived in the Betherston parish, where he was also rector, seems to have known nothing about these doings until after the event, when he instructed the church warden to make a list of the deceased from memory. When we look at the list of names, which included Dr. Hartnett's wife, we find some clues about the effects of the disease. First, we can see that it affected no one class of the population more than another. The names in blue are the wealthier residents, and you can see the spread is fairly equal among rich and poor. Mortality is, however, slightly more pronounced in women, with 22 cases. Now, we will never know for sure what disease killed these people. Influenza was ever present, but the secret burials suggest something worse, as Smarden clearly did not want the news to get out. However, when we look again at the list, we see no clusters of family names. This would have happened with the plague, when entire families were shut up at home if just one of them showed symptoms, mixing the healthy with the sick and condemning all of them to death. But there is one theory which explains all these facts. We know that the policy of isolating complete families had in some places been discontinued in favour of isolating just the sick, thus sparing those who had not been infected. So coming back to the list of names and the apparently random way in which this disease killed, could it be that these infected people had been isolated by Hartnett in his newly built cottages, well away from the healthy villagers? The disease struck fast and then disappeared after just 2 months. If we look at the church register, we see that marriages, for example, had resumed by the autumn, so village life quickly went back to normal. So there we have it. That is the story of Smarden'S deadly year, a bad time made better by a good man. If he were alive today, I'm sure we would find Hartnett as inspirational as we find our doctors, nurses and carers now. So if you have enjoyed watching this film and would like to show your appreciation of the NHS, here's how you can do it. You can donate via the Smarden History Society website or on the Just Giving pages. Google Smarden Heritage Centre, then go to the page marked Books and DVDs. Scroll down the page to the Donate button, which will accept most world currencies. Alternatively, go to Jill Bromley's NHS Just Giving page. Thank you.